Hi and welcome back to my channel. I'm Simon and today I am back with a video making my predictions for the Booker Prize 2025 longlist. I have not done this for a couple of years, although Mum and I have done parallel reads of the shortlist the last few years. I have got super duper excited about the potential longlist this year though, and so yeah, I thought I would join in the fun. And originally this video was just going to be on Patreon, however this is a bit of a remix. There's a costume change and an edit or 2 or 3 or 12, and as always with my prediction videos I have got 13 solid choices, but I chuck a few extra honourable mentions in to the point where I think there's 14 honourable mentions, which could in itself be another book dozen, as they call it, because generally the long list is 13 books. Now, the reason I've got so excited about the long list this year is threefold. The first one is just seeing lots of buzz and chatter about it, and particularly Ben Reads Goods videos, which I have really enjoyed, and his Instagram content too actually. He's made many a different prediction video and it's all been, well, tantalising and got me in the mood, frankly, although that sounds a little bit wrong. The second reason is because of 2 of the judges, and this year we have the incredible Ayobami Adebayo, who is an author that I adore. I love her books, I love her writing, her taste is fab. I've actually got a video we filmed last year or the year before. I used some of it for one video, but then there's still a whole thing that I could do where she recommended me 4 books, and I wondered if maybe I should read those books and insert my comments as I go. If that's something you'd like to see in a future video, let me know. I can put that live somewhere between longlist and winner. And then the other judge that has made me super duper excited about the Booker Prize longlist this year is Sarah Jessica Parker, who, as well as being fabulous in Sex and the City and Just Like That, Hocus Pocus, I could go on, is also a huge libraries advocate, and I would love to see the documentary that she produced about librarians in America. I'm hoping that comes out here at some point. Also, she has corking book taste. I mean, she loves Caris Davies, and anyone who loves Caris Davies as much as I do, well, absolutely, no question. I want to find out more about the books that they love. And then thirdly and finally, but certainly last but not least, because actually this is the main reason I've got particularly excited this year, is that ever since myself and Cole did our book buddy read of Henry by Alan Bratton, we have become firm book buddies and have chatted about what might be on the long list, what might not be on the long list, what winners we've read before and really loved. Oh, there's been so much chatter on WhatsApp that if we put it all together and made a podcast of it, which we call Gay Wrongs, then I think there could be like a 24-hour episode. You get a whole season, and that has got my excitement going through the roof. We will actually be doing a Instagram live on Tuesday as the long list is announced with our live reaction. So if you'd like to join us for that, that would be lovely. I'll try and save it though if people can't make it because they've got other stuff on. So we're going to head back to last week when I filmed my predictions video for Patreon, and then we'll be back afterwards for me to do a little recap on what my 13 are, and then have some questions for you about the Booker Prize longlist 2025. So yeah, over to past me, who's wearing something very bold and red. First up will be no surprise to any of you because it is my favourite book of the year, and that is Dusk by Robbie Arno, a tale of twins who are turned bounty hunters because they're living on the below the breadline, frankly. So go hunting for a puma called Dusk who has a bounty on her head as she has been eating shepherds. And this is so beautifully written. It's a book very much about nature and human nature and who owns land and who owns nature and who owns, well, all sorts, plus has one of the best endings ever. I won't say anymore because I don't want to spoil it, but yeah, I would be delighted if this was on the list. The reaction, if it is, on Tuesday will be something to behold, frankly. That's all I'll say on that one. But yeah, really hopeful. It's out in the UK and America, I believe, on the 6th or 7th of August, so not very long to wait for that one. Then, and I know we shouldn't put too much onus on, here's the word onus, isn't it, on particular judges and what they might push through, but with the wonderful Ayobami Adebayo being on the list, I'm really hopeful we're going to see some fiction from Africa, and that is something I feel has been missing from the Longlist for a while, a bit like Australian fiction, although I know we had Charlotte Wood last year, which I was talked about. But yeah, it does feel like since the prize opened to America that we are seeing less of those, and that feels a real shame to me. So I'm hoping with A on the judging panel that will be put right. And I have one book that is my personal pick, but there's another one that I would also really like to see. But my personal pick is Cursed Daughters by Ian Braithwaite. Now this is actually not out until towards the end of September, so it's one of those aforementioned books that won't be available if it's on the long list when the long list comes out. I don't know very much about it other than I'm super duper excited, and with Ian having been longlisted before, I think she's automatically eligible. Sorry, I had to stop because the magpies were going insane. They've gone now. Another book that kind of isn't an official prediction for me or personal pick, but one that I would be really interested to see or could potentially be on the list that's also an African novel is Necessary Fiction by Alosa Asunde, who I will be hosting at an event at West Kirby Bookshop next Wednesday to talk about this and their debut Vagabonds. This is about a group of queer people in Nigeria who sort of, I think, filter into each other's lives, and it's how they're basically surviving, and I think this sounds amazing. So would be thrilled for there to be more than one novel from Africa on the list. This is one that I would love to see. And speaking of judges, with Roddy Doyle being the chair of the judges, there's been a lot of chatter about the fact that people think this is going to be a really Irish heavy list. I've only actually got one Irish novel in my personal prediction / books that I'd really like to see because I really want to read them if I haven't read them already, and that is The Benefactors by Wendy Erskine, which I have to say has one of my least favourite covers of the entire year. Anyway, this is about a group of women who all have sons that are 18 and who've been alleged of doing something pretty horrific, and we follow the women and how they deal with that and what comes next. Heard amazing things. She's meant to be an incredible short story writer as well, and I think short story writers who write I think authors who can do short stories really, really well can really handle novels. I'm thinking of particularly Caris Davies. Anyway, very intrigued for this one and think it could be on the list. I did also consider, and there are a fair few that I could have mentioned, but I think A Family Matter by Claire Lynch might have a real shot, another queer tale. I'm intrigued for this one, haven't got around to it yet, but would love to. On to an author and my fourth personal prediction or personal pick. This author I absolutely love. They're one of my faves. I have not read anything of theirs, be it fiction or non-fiction, for quite a while. However, I have been super duper excited to read this. This is a retelling of a classic novel, which I think is kind of Booker in a way. It is Call Me Ishmael by Xiaolo Guo, and this is a retelling of Moby Dick that is gender bending as well. Ishmael, in this case, is a young girl who dresses as a young boy and gets involved in the story somehow. I have made peace with the fact that I will never read Moby Dick. From what I've heard, you don't need to have read Moby Dick to enjoy this. It's a bit of a chunkster. There tends to be a chunkster on the list. I'm thinking also maybe of Flashlight, which I keep calling Flashlight, by Suzanne Choi, which I do have, but I haven't chosen in my personal list, but then I've just talked about anyway. But yeah, I'm expecting there to be maybe one, maybe two chunksters on the list, we'll see. Then another book that is not going to be out when the list is announced, however, I think is in with a really good shot because it sounds really quite different. It's Helm by Sarah Hall, and this is the tale of a wind in the north of England that exists and has existed for centuries, and through a narrative of this wind, which apparently is quite a tricksy character, we get a history of the British Isles, and that sounds so interesting to me. Very Booker. Also mildly terrifying because here on the cover it says human written. I can't believe we're in a world where that's what's going to have to happen with books. I was also going to just mention, I've forgotten to have it next to me, because I do have a copy of it, Ripeness by Sarah Moss, which I would also not be surprised to see on the list and be delightful because I really like Sarah Moss and I've meant to read that book. However, I was thinking it can't be like another poor year except all the Sarahs, because with Sarah Jessica Parker on the judging panel, that might also be a bit mad. But who knows, it could be the year of Sarah for all we know, and that would be exciting too. Then on to my second Australian or Antipodean pick. We have A Language of Limbs by Dylan Hardcastle. Again, one that I don't think I've seen anybody suggesting will be up for the prize. I wonder if people are forgetting that it's out here. But this is a really unusually narrated novel from what I've heard, in the fact that we follow two separate limbs after a certain point and how their lives differ. I don't know whether it's two different people and it's these limbs that are like, I don't know, I have just heard it's really, really incredible. It looks at a very difficult time in Australian history for queer people, and yeah, so I would be intrigued for this. Well, not intrigued, I would be delighted. I would love this to be on this. So we have A Language of Limbs. Now, that did make me think of one other element that I would love, and that is that I would really love to see some trans representation on the long list. That would make me so happy. So we do have Dylan Hardcastle. Also, as I mentioned, we have Eloisha Asunde. I know people are also talking about Nicola Dinnan potentially being on the list. Some people are saying that, you know, it's incredible and should be, and that excites me because I really loved her debut, Bellies. On to a debut novel. I think this is the first debut that I've picked, and that is Saraswati by Gunaik Johal, and this is getting absolute raves. It's set in India, and there is a folkloric river that is part of myth and folklore, obviously, that has disappeared, and we meet our narrator as they're going to their grandmother's estate after she's died, and they find a well, and it looks like traces of that river could be there. So I think this has got a bit of magical realism to it. I think it's also looking at climate change and heritage and what we are doing to the earth, and I think all of that sounds pretty Booker to me. I was thinking though, there is another book that people have been umming and ahhing about, and I got sent only the other day and I'm intrigued by, and that's Splintering by Duri Aziz Amna, and this is meant to be absolutely phenomenal. And Duckworth, the publishers, have been really, well, they've had a bit of a streak with prizes over the last few years, so that intrigues me. So I think they'll probably have submitted it, and like I said, I would like to see some indie publishers in the mix. Then we have a book that I've read, so the second of my suggestions that I've actually read, and that's The Dream Hotel by Layla Alami. I think this novel is very much of the now. I think it would be great for there to be some speculative fiction. There quite often can be speculative fiction on the long list. That said, I also really loved Hum by Helen Phillips, which is also eligible. I think this one, with its look at AI, which also looks in some ways at migration, it also looks at fake news, it also looks at, well, a whole myriad of things. I think this is very much of the now. It's incredibly written. I would love to see it on the list because, well, one, I thought it was fab. Also, it would be quite nice if I'd read some of the books on the list when it comes out. Then we have my third and final Antipodean pick, and this may be a surprise because I think there is a book that lots of you probably think I would put on my personal list because I did really, really love it, and have read it, and I haven't read this one. Well, I've read the first 2 chapters of this one, but I'll be going back to it because it's a perfect pick for the Savage reading prompt. I'm only behind on one, and that is, actually no, I haven't done this month either. Only behind on one, which is your favourite author's favourite author, and this book has quotes on it from Charlotte Wood, who is one of my favourite authors, Jessie Burton, who is another of my favourite authors, and Evie Wilde, who is another of my favourite authors. It's Rapture by Emily Maguire, which is about, well, it's based on the historical tale of the female Pope, and we follow her from birth, and the writing is so stunning. I am so excited to get back to it.
I started it back in, I don't know what month that prompt was, but yeah, a while back, and been meaning to get back to it ever since.
So I should mention some other Antipodean books that I would be delighted if made the list, but I haven't personally picked them. The first is The Book of Guilt, which is the one that I think people will be, well, would have thought would be on my list, by Catherine Chidgey, and I think this is fantastic. It's alternative historical fiction. It is so brilliantly gripping and twisty and just, oh, it's fantastic. However, I had a big chat with Mum about this book, and I hadn't really noticed at the time, but I do agree, and I've think I've talked about this with a few other people since, that the final like 50, 60 pages is a bit of a rush. And also there is one particular part that's very implausible that I hadn't really spotted, but then as soon as Mum mentioned it, after me having read it and us having a right old natter about it, I haven't been able to quite get rid of that feeling. So I wonder if that's what the judges maybe think, but if it's on the list, absolutely fantastic. And then the one that lots and lots of other people are saying will be on the list, along with that, should say Theory and Practice by Michelle Cresta, which I have coming from Australia because I did a readings order the other day. As I said, I'm only doing books that I have on my shelves. But back to this, Eden Glassy is out here in the UK by Melissa Lukashenko, published by One World, and they have a very good hit rate with the Booker. They published Marlon James. If this was on the list, again, would be delighted. Now, with my next personal pick, I've gone for another book that isn't out until the end of September. That is Mahesh Rao's Half Light. This is a book about the decriminalisation of homosexuality in India. I would really love for there to be quite a few queer books on the list. I have read Mahesh before. He's a fantastic author. His short story collection, 1.2 billion people, I think it's called, is just phenomenal, and I've been so excited to get to this. Well, as soon as I heard it was coming out, I was like, right, I'm gonna have to read it, and I will be reading it very soon. But I would just be thrilled for him if he was on this list. So this is another personal pick of mine. Again, I've not heard anyone talking about, but again, there's so many possibilities. But on that queer fiction link, there are a few others that, again, I would have put on this list. Deviance by Santanu Bhattacharya, which is about queer Indian men over different generations and how their stories link with each other and how different their experiences are over the different generations. Then we have The South by Tash Orr, which is set in Sri Lanka and is about two young boys who fall in love in the rural wilds, which also links with Open Heaven by Sean Hewitt, which is a queer novel set as two men fall in love in rural England. So that one. And then we also have Nova Scotia House by Charlie Porter, which is another book that I'm super duper excited to get to, which is about a gay couple who have quite a big age difference and how one deals with the death of the other and how they move forward in their life whilst also reflecting on it. I think this has got real Booker vibes to it. I do have one more queer book though to go. It's not the next one though, which is, I just think this sounds amazing. And if it wasn't for the fact that I was finishing that themed reading vlog that I mentioned, I would literally want to be heading to this now. I bought it last weekend. Very naughty of me, because I said that I'm not buying, or I keep telling myself I'm not buying more hardbacks because I always end up reading them when they're out in paperback, so that seems daft. But I'm so excited for this one. It is Endling by Maria Riva, and this is about a woman in Ukraine. I was going to say before the war as we know it, because having worked with Ukrainian libraries, I have learned so much about the history and the fact that this has been going on for way longer than we think or has been discussed. But it's also about an endling, which is a snail, hence the cloud in the shape of a snail. And endlings are the last of a species. And I think this just is going to look at what comes with conflict and war alongside nature. I think it's got quite a bit of science in it, which I'm a little bit nervous about, but I've heard it's such a wild ride and so brilliantly bonkers that you just can't stop reading it. I'm very, very, very excited for this. So I'd love to see this on the list too. And then penultimately from my picks, but we are going to deviate again with what could be on the list, we have A Room Above a Shop by Anthony Shapland, which is just stunning. I am worried that this could possibly be too short, too few words. I've not been through and counted the words personally, but yeah, that is my slight concern with this one. But I would be thrilled if it was on there, because honestly, this is so beautifully written. It's a haunting novel about two men in 1980s rural Wales who fall in love and have to do it very secretly, and how they work out each other is gay is well, I've not seen that written about so well when it's almost like not a psychic thing, but kind of almost. And there's nature in this book. It's such a wonderful book about love. It's utterly heartbreaking at the same time, and looks at how it was at that time with the AIDS epidemic and all the homophobia, which generally you hear about in cities, and this is in rural Wales. So yeah, fantastic. Also, it would be great to have a Welsh novelist on the list, and that brought up a couple of, well, 3 more books that I thought would be possible considerations. 1 more that's Welsh and then 2 that are Scottish. And the other Welsh book is Cloudless by Rupert Duster, which I know a couple of you have read and have absolutely loved. It's about a soldier who's been fighting in Iraq and comes home to the family farm, I think, in North Wales, which is part of the world I absolutely love. And I did mean to read this in North Wales, but didn't get around to it. But it gives me an excuse to go back to North Wales so I can specifically read it right where it's set. And we follow the family that seems to be quite fractured as he returns, and I think this sounds like it's going to be great. Then the Scottish books. First up we have Muckle. In fact, no, let's do it the other way around because that links to some others. We have The Two Peters by Damien Barr, which is set in Scotland in the 1930s and is the love story of 2 male artists. I've read Damien's memoir and his previous novel, and he writes beautifully. So this one, again, it comes out in September, so it wouldn't be out for a while, but yeah, I think that could make it. The other Scottish book, we have Muckleflugger, as I sneakily held up earlier, by Michael Pedersen, who is a poet, and I love novels by poets. I'm really excited for this. I didn't realise when I first got a proof of this that Muckleflugger was a real place. It's one of the Shetland Isles, and I love books set at islands, and I think it could be quite different. It isn't in my personal list, but I have mentioned it. And I did want to mention 2 other authors before my final personal pick, who are both poets who have novels out. The first is Ursa Daly Ward. This is The Catch. I love Ursa Daly Ward's writing. The Terrible, if you've not read it, is utterly phenomenal. Anyway, so we have that one, and we also have Ocean Vuong's The Emperor of Gladness, which again, I've not seen people predicting much, but I wonder if that's because there has been a real Marmite response to it. Some people really, really love it, some people have really, really not. I also think because it's become an Oprah pick, it might get overlooked, possibly. I don't know, that could just be me and my silly thoughts. So we have that. But lastly, from my picks, my 13th pick is Misinterpretation by Lydia, I think it's Lydia, it could be Lydia, Joga. It's a book that looks at a young woman who is an Albanian interpreter, and she ends up working with this man and finding out all of his trauma. And it's a really shocking story that brings up some of the trauma in her life, which makes her head back to her homeland and look at how different things are. I think it's a book that looks at, I quite often, one of the things that I really love in fiction is where you get someone going to a new country and it's how those cultures come together, where they collide, where they merge, all that lovely stuff. I've not really seen it where they move and then go back, and this is that book. It's also from Daunt Books, so it's a small imprint, but yeah, this, I don't know, something keeps making me think that this is going to be on the list. So back, and here are my 13 predictions. This is all a little bit peril filled because Earl is literally underneath this, but we have Dusk by Robbie Arno, Cursed Daughters by Ian Braithwaite, The Benefactors by Wendy Erskine, Call Me Ishmael by João Laguo, Helm by Sarah Hall, The Language of Limbs by Dylan Hardcastle, Saraswati by Gurnaik Johal, The Dream Hotel by Layla Lalami, this is getting very wobbly, Rapture by Emily Maguire, Half Light by Mahesh Rao, Endling by Maria Riva, A Room Above a Shop by Anthony Shapland, and Misinterpretation by Lydia Joga. Wowzers, let me just get those down. Sorry, Earl. Ooh, there we are. One thing I forgot to mention was I only picked books that I had on my shelves, and also they all meet the eligibility criteria of being published between the 1st of October 2024 and the 30th of September 2025 in the UK in English for the first time. There we are. I would love to know what you think of my predictions and my honourable mentions. I'd love to know what you're predicting will be on the long list, and if you're planning on reading it this year. Hopefully you'll join me and Cole on Tuesday over on Instagram for our live at 2 p.m. BST, or just before 2 p.m. BST. That would be delightful. If you want some more savage shenanigans in the interim, my Patreon, where this was a sneaky preview peek, is linked down below, along with my Instagram, my Blue Sky, and my wishlist, and all those other things. But until the next one, it's bye from me, and it's bye from Pearl. Say bye, Pearl. Oh, you didn't like that. That's the first time he's ever growled at me. Right, bye.